first myth I want busted is that pollution affects only lungs.
Right.
It's wrong. Pollution affects every part of the body from brain to toe. Pollution starts impacting us even before we are born. Today, a child born in a polluted city becomes a smoker from the first breath of his life. Next 20 years, India is going to see an epidemic of lung cancer. Air purifiers, masks, etc., are knee-jerk reactions. Smog towers, whoever is proposing them, they've been put up with fanfare in the city of Delhi. They are a huge waste, colossal waste of public money. Let
being violated.
this human right, clean air, be the election issue for 2024.
Namaste, Jai Hind. You are watching or listening to ANI podcast with Smita Prakash. Today we have with us Dr. Arvind Kumar, chairman of the Institute of Chest Surgery, Chest Oncosurgery and Lung Transplantation at Medanta Hospital and founding and managing trustee of the Lung Care Foundation. Now, I spoke to him about a whole host of issues, which include, children and the elderly suffering from lung-related disorders because of pollution. Now, the frightening thing is that when you are looking at the statistics, the data which is there, doctors say that 80% of most lung care patients that they are seeing today are non-smokers. They used to be smokers in the 80s, but now they're non-smokers. So what they saw as pink lungs of babies in the 80s and in the 90s also, now kids, as soon as they take the first breath of air, especially in North India, they become smokers. So by the time they are in their 20s, they are like heavy-duty smokers and they have what used to be known as smokers' lungs, simply because they are breathing. What happens? Do lawmakers not know about the situation that we are in? We as parents, as young adults, we are all concerned about our children, about our parents. How do we protect them and protect ourselves? And some of us who've had COVID, we have already got compromised lungs now. So whether we were smokers or whether we were fit and energetic, we are all suffering from lung-related disorders. And if we do not sort it out, we are looking at an epidemic in a few years' time, a cancer epidemic in India. These are questions that we discussed in our conversation. Each one of us is affected, whichever part of India you are living in. We are all affected. And even if you aren't living in India, if you have relatives and friends who are living in India, they are also vulnerable today. So listen in to my conversation with Dr. Arvind Kumar. Thank you very much for speaking with us, Dr. Arvind Kumar. The first question I have is, when I was as a parent, as someone who has an aging parent, in-laws, you just tend to worry about air pollution and the effect it has on vulnerable groups. If you have a parent who has diabetes, or if you have diabetes, or you have children with lung-related disorders like asthma, the pollution in North India, thanks to or no thanks to this parali burning and things, it's become so chronic. The past couple of years, at least I feel that, like when I go for a seminar or conference, you're continuously hearing people coughing in the audience, if it's North India. You go and address anybody abroad, or you address anybody in Northeast India or in South India, that issue is not there. But North India, it's like everybody is having some kind of, this chest congestion, cough and related issues. As a doctor, you tell me, how do we handle this?
Smita, first of all, thank you very much for having me on this podcast. It's indeed an honor for me to be doing this podcast with you.
Thank you, sir.
Coming to pollution issue, it's a very, very important issue, not just for the present generation, but more importantly, and sadly, an aspect not adequately highlighted, it's a vital issue for our next generation. Mm-hmm. Now, why do I say that? I say that because when we breathe, in 24 hours, we breathe 25,000 times. In the process, inhaling about 10,000 liters of air every day. And when you have toxins present in this air, they go into our lungs. From the lungs, they get absorbed into the blood, and through the blood, they go to every part of the body from head to toe. So, first myth that I would like to bust through this podcast is that pollution affects only lungs.
Right.
No, big no. Lungs are the portal of entry for the pollutants into the body, but once into the body, they affect every organ. So that's myth number one busted.
Because of the blood
Yeah,
circulation.
so when they go to the lungs, and
Okay.
especially the smaller particles and the gases, they reach up to the periphery. So the same site from where the oxygen absorption takes place,
Right.
these toxins also find their way into the blood,
Okay.
and they come to the heart, and then they get circulated across the body.
So, somebody who may not have asthma or any lung related disorder but has a heart issue is also a victim of pollution now,
Sure.
because that polluted blood is coming to the
Sure,
heart,
sure.
and the heart not being strong enough to pump fresh blood or good blood or
Sure.
whatever cannot get rid of the toxins,
Sure.
right? Am
I'll-
I simplifying that?
You're simplifying it. I'll come to this point. So
Right.
the first myth I want busted is that pollution affects only lungs.
Right.
It's wrong. Pollution affects every part of the body from brain to toe. That's one. Two, most of the people feel that pollution affects adults because we are on the roads and outside more often, and therefore it affects. The sad, and I will repeat this word, SAD, sad. The sad part of the story is pollution starts impacting us even before we are born.
Oh,
There is data available now that if a pregnant mother breathes polluted air, the pollutants from her blood cross the placental barrier and go to the child who's under development in her uterus and starts affecting that child. If it's first trimester, it affects development of organs and thereafter growth. So from congenital malformations to intrauterine growth retardation to premature delivery to death inside the uterus, all these are being reported, recorded with higher incidence in polluted cities in pregnant women than in non-polluted cities.
so it's not just cities, right? Because yes, in cities we have.
When I say
okay.
cities, I mean areas. Let me
Areas,
correct
right?
myself. Not
Because-
cities, because it's not a city-specific problem. This
Right.
problem now is becoming as rampant in the villages. The causes may be different, but it impacts people in villages as well.
Because of coal burning or using wood as. Yeah.
The cause is use of solid fuel inside the households. So when the lady will cook the food on a chula inside a room, big room, the smoke fills up the room, and people who are sitting in that room, who are usually the elderly people of the house and the little children who are sitting near the chula, they inhale. And it has been shown that the particulate matter levels may be as high as 25 to 30,000 per millimeter cube in these smoky
Because
areas.
traditionally, the way homes were constructed in India, there was no concept of open kitchens or ventilation in the kitchen. So even in a large house, like if you go to villages, the larger homes, they don't have cross ventilation. They don't even have, some of them don't even have ventilation as such, just a door. So there's not even a window. And usually what happens is that the wood is placed outside the room in some cases in South India. The wood is outside the room and there is like a passage like thing, and then there's a chula and the smoke goes out. But in some cases, when you don't have that facility of having the wood outside, then the wood is inside. And it's cooked inside.
So more houses
Yeah.
will have wood kept inside the room, the chulha also inside the room, the cooking is done there. It may or may not have a window, And usually the smoke fills up that room. The little children are sitting next to the chulha. The elderly people are sitting in the room.
So
and they
everybody
keep
is subjected to it.
everybody in the house, from the children to the lady to the elderly people, everybody smokes. And this is one of the commonest causes of pollution-related morbidity and mortality in our rural areas.
So I have spoken to some people when when we go out for coverages, when I was doing a story on this Ujjwala Yojana, and so there is a resistance to using non coal and wood in cooking. Is swad nahi aata. This is a question. It's the same way that when the Swachh Bharat story I was doing, people don't want the toilet inside the house. So there's a cultural resistance to it, but there is a need for awakening, right? There is, just like at one point of time in the 70s, family planning program was undertaken on this massive thing, even the immunization schedule. By and large, people know that you need to have small families. By and large, people know that tika lagwana hai bachon ka. But this has still not percolated.
Yes. So there are two reasons for this.
Right.
One is this, what you rightly said was that the elderly person in the house will say कि gas पर स्वाद नहीं आता. He is used to having that chulha wala roti and he cannot do without it. So he insists on the chulha being used even though the cylinder may be lying in the house. So that's one cultural taboo which we are trying hard to break by making a lot of videos in various regional languages and sending them out to actually the gas distributors, who can then share them with the people, trying to tell them that in the process of having that swad wala roti, you're actually playing with the lives of your children, the housewife and the elderly people. So that's one. Second reason is economic, that Ujjwala Yojana gave the gas chulha and the first cylinder free of cost. But thereafter, they had to get the cylinder refilled by paying some amount. When they get wood from the jungle, it usually comes free of cost.
Right.
So there again, they think that it makes economic sense to use wood rather than chulha. And I, as doctor, am trying to tell them that it does not make economic sense, because when the people in the house fall sick because of this smoke, it costs them much more, the treatment part, than what they have saved in the cost of the cylinder. So again, it's an issue about awareness. I think the supply has been done. What we need to do is to create massive awareness that chulha is the way to go. It makes economic sense, it makes cultural sense, and it also makes gastronomic sense to make food on the chulha rather than on the gas burner rather than the chulha.
Doctor, since you're an expert and you deal with chest and lung disorders and transplants too, everybody knows by now that tobacco plays a large role in this. But of late, I've been reading that it's not, those who come with lung cancer and stuff, it's not just tobacco.
Yeah.
It's more than than that. It's not smokers' lungs anymore. Lung cancer has.
So allow me to share my 30 years experience as a lung cancer surgeon. I started my career at All India Institute in 1988. When I look at my initial data, 90% of my lung cancer patients were smokers, mostly men and people in 50s and 60s.
This you're talking in the 80s.
Late 80s and early 90s. I looked at my last 10 years data recently, and I was horrified to find that now 50% of the patients are so-called non-smokers. And I'll give you the reason why I'm using the word so-called non-smokers. 40% of the patients today are women, non-smokers from non-smoking families, and the peak age from 50s and 60s has come down to 40s. And I have 10% of patients in 30s, and my youngest patient was a 24-year-old girl from a non-smoking family.
Now this is shocking,
why
right?
is this happening? This is what WHO Director General has called second tobacco epidemic. So if you look at the chemical composition of the tobacco smoke and the polluted air, you find that a large number of cancer-causing chemicals are actually common in both. So whatever is present in tobacco smoke and causes cancer is also present in polluted air and therefore is causing cancer. The reason why we are seeing all this earlier is that earlier people used to get exposed to pollution when they would go out. So typically around late teens, early 20s, their exposure to pollution used to start, or they used to start smoking at this age. We know that you need exposure to cancer-causing agents for about 20-25 years before the tissues become cancerous. So you start smoking at 20-25, at 25, by 50, you are ready to get lung cancer. Today, a child born in a polluted city becomes a smoker from the first breath of his life. And again, I'll explain why I'm saying that. Suppose in
Please
Delhi
repeat this.
today,
So a child born
there is
in August of 2022 or September of 2022 is a smoker by October 2022.
So, no, not by October, from the very
day he's
first breath
born.
of his life. If in October, the PM 2.5 level in Delhi is 300 micrograms per cubic meter, in terms of equivalence to smoking, there is a conversion formula. 22 micrograms of PM 2.5 is equal to 1 cigarette. So if you have 220 microgram level, it's equal to 10 cigarettes. So a child born in Delhi on the day when the 24-hour PM 2.5 is 220 plus will smoke and get damage equal to 10 cigarettes on the day one of his or her life.
So you cannot prevent, what do you do as a parent?
So when you start smoking from the first breath of your life, by the time you are 25 years old, you've actually smoked for 25 years and you're ready to get lung cancer. That's why I'm seeing lung cancer in non-smokers, in girls, and in people in 20s and 30s. And I dare say it on your podcast that next 20 years, India is going to see an epidemic of lung cancer. And we are already tending to see that.
And our medical fraternity, our policy makers, everybody's aware, but nobody will do anything.
Medical fraternity is aware. Medical fraternity is making noise about it. We formed a group called Doctors for Clean Air, where across the country we are trying to share this information with schools, resident welfare associations, politicians, bureaucrats, and everybody, trying to make them. So we have a AAA approach. So we make them aware. When they are aware, they will be awakened to the danger. And when they are awakened, we expect that they will take some actions.
No, but this is something which is not new, right? This has been happening at least 10 years as far as I know.
What is new is that till few years back, pollution was considered an environmental and a chemical issue, talked about by environmentalists, talked about by chemists and other people, researchers, as a chemical kind of an issue. Truly, it's not that. It's a health issue. And presenting it to the masses as a health issue is something which I think has started only in the last 5 years.
So people usually think that deaths in large numbers happen because of communicable diseases. But what you are saying is that it's going to be a non-communicable disease.
The deaths being caused by pollution-related illnesses today is more than HIV, AIDS, tuberculosis, malaria, dengue, and this COVID combined.
Okay. That's quite frightening.
The reality is that we should have a clause in every death certificate in every hospital. Did pollution contribute to this death? And I'm pretty sure that in 90% plus deaths across the country today, you would find that pollution would have had some role to play.
But
As I said, it's causing brain attacks. So let's start looking at the impacts it has. So in children, as I said, in the intrauterine life, it causes congenital defects, it causes growth retardation, death inside When the child
But
is
can you
born,
make, sorry to interrupt, doctor, but can you make a direct correlation? For example, just a layman's way of asking you that a child can probably have an attention deficit kind of a thing. Is that related?
I'm coming to that.
Yeah.
I'm coming to that.
How
So
do I know the direct?
after birth, so there have been studies across the world. There are people who've spent their whole lives researching these issues. What I'm talking is not my conjecture. I'm talking of
Right.
the hard data which is available, which I have read. So when I say it impacts the children, the growing fetus in the uterus, there is real data available. When the child is born, they have in the immediate postpartum period, they have bronchiolitis, so which is the equivalent of asthma. In children, all the time we are saying that these days children are becoming very naughty. They're very hyperactive.
Right.
That actually is inflammation of the brain. Now it is known that these pollutants go to the brain and they cause neuroinflammation, which initially manifests itself as hyper active child or attention deficit disorder, and later on it has been shown to reduce the IQ levels also. So these children may not attain their ideal IQ levels because of exposure. Come to lungs, it causes bronchiolitis, it causes asthma. It's one of the commonest causes of pneumonia deaths in under 5 children in the country. It causes numerous cancers. As you grow, it causes COPD and now the most dreaded lung cancer. Come to heart.
So COPD would be?
COPD is a chronic obstructive disease in which your lungs become swollen up with air and you're not able to get oxygen. So smoking used to be a cause, but now pollution exposure is emerging as the major cause. Come to heart system. Many children in schools these days are being discovered to have premature hypertension. People in teens.
That's
now
true.
that again is related to pollution. It's been shown time and again that whenever there are peaks of pollution, a week or 10 days later, all hospitals in those areas report much higher levels of people presenting with heart attacks. So it's known to predispose to heart attacks and contribute to heart attacks. It's known to predispose to brain attacks. So lung is affected, heart is affected, blood vessels are affected, brain is affected, and reproductive organs. Again, it is being presented as one of the cause for decreased libido and decreased sexual performance. Come to 2 new additions, very sad and very frightening. Recently, we did a study of over 1,000 school children in Delhi and compared them with equal number of children in Mysore and Kottayam, which are 2 less polluted cities. We found 29% incidence of asthma in Delhi children. We found 38% incidence of overweight or obesity in Delhi children compared to other 2 cities. And there was a correlation between obesity and asthma.
How?
So the theory is that pollution is causing obesity. Obesity predisposes you to asthma, and pollution also causes asthma directly. So it's a double whammy, which pollution is causing. It's causing asthma directly. It's causing higher incidence of obesity, which is then contributing to asthma. And latest, now there is evidence emerging that even diabetes, the rising incidence of diabetes in India may have something to do with pollution because the pollutants are getting deposited in the pancreas and in the peripheral tissue, predisposing people to diabetes.
So I'm sure
obesity, diabetes, hypertension, heart disease, heart attack, brain less development, height less development, the list is endless.
Now, I'm sure when you say these things at your awareness meeting, everybody is aware of it, at least to some extent. But the point is, policymakers should know, right? Those who are planning this country's growth trajectory for the next 20 years, we're talking about Amrit Kal and things, about where India is going to be in the next 20 years, 25 years, 50 years. Where will we be if we have an endemic of cancer? An epidemic of cancer in our country. We are 1.3 billion now in 2022, if we have millions of people with cancer, how do we deal with this issue? Do our policy makers not realize the enormity of this? Because see, a lot of pollution related things can be handled. Like when I went to when our teams are going to Punjab every time covering this thing, you talk to any chief minister, your anybody who's handling health, agriculture, किसान से कौन कुछ बोलेगा? और अपने vehicles बंद करो. Stop the vehicular pollution. Why do you go to the farmer? You are anti-farmer. If you talk to the vehicle manufacturers, you're anti-industry. How do we deal with this crisis?
So my experience, I have had occasions to interact with all these segments of people, from decision makers, politicians, bureaucrats, journalists, school children, principals, civil society, police people, because we've been addressing everybody. We've even gone to parliamentarians. We had a meeting with parliamentarians. I gave them a picture of a normal pink lung and a lung of a non-smoker Delhiite, where there were a lot of black deposits, and they showed it in the parliament also. All that has happened. So these people are aware. When you say, they all agree, yes, something needs to be done. But the thing is that somehow that awareness is not converting into the immediate and massive actions which need to be taken. The urgency of situation somehow has not dawned on them.
What is the
It's
solution?
a medical emergency. If we don't set it right today, we are endangering the lives of our children. For me, it's a medical emergency. Everything else can stop. We need to go and fix this problem. That kind of an emergency or urgency and a desire to take instant action with instant results, that's not there. If we take actions which are likely to give their results in 15, 20
Too
years'
late.
time, a whole generation would have suffered morbidity, mortality because of this problem.
Doc, so what is the solution? It can't be one solution,
No,
right? It's
no,
not mask peno.
no.
It's not give you inoculation.
No.
It's not that.
No. So priorities have to be set right. First rule is that anyone who says that I'll let pollution happen and then take measures to clean the polluted air, he does not know even the basics or ABCD. So smog towers, whoever is proposing them, they've been put up with fanfare in the city of Delhi. They are a huge waste, colossal waste of public money.
Really?
No country in the world has solved its air pollution problem by putting smog towers.
So this is a farce.
Total farce. Colossal waste of precious public money. That's number one. Number two, it's a public problem. Air purifiers, masks, etc., are knee-jerk reactions, personal solutions to what is basically a public problem. We've done it with electricity. When electricity was not there, instead of
Generators.
fixing, we went for inverters and generators. That was the first time we sought a private solution to a public problem. Second time, we did it with water. When the supply was not good, we started carrying our private bottles. Unfortunately, there is an attempt to do the same with air also. People don't realize you can be without water for 5 days. You can be without electricity for n number of days. You can't be without air for more than 2 minutes. And you cannot carry your own air. I'm sitting in your studio. I'm breathing the air. Can I bring my air curtain from my house and say, oh, I'm safe with this air curtain? No. So the solution lies in cleaning the air across the country and not putting these wastage of smog towers, which are also share. So this is the first realization which has to come. Solution lies in addressing the sources. That's number one. Sources are many. So vehicles are a big source. Parali, unfortunately, is given a huge amount of attention, but I would like to clarify that it's something which happens a certain part of the year, contributes a certain quota during this part, and if you take totality of the picture, its contribution to a total is actually a much smaller segment than the attention that is given to it.
So
So
vehicular.
a lot of pollution is coming from vehicles. Huge amount of pollution is coming from coal-fired power plants.
Okay.
They are the biggest problem. They need to have devices fixed to reduce the emissions from them. And this was something which Ministry of Environment took it up on its own, suo moto, about 5 years back and fixed very rigid norms for all of them to implement in a certain time frame, which was a beautiful, welcome step. Unfortunately, since then, that deadline has been deferred 3 times and now stands deferred to 2025 for reasons which I need not spell out here.
Okay. Where are these located mostly?
Across the country.
Across the country. Right.
So, electric vehicles are a wonderful, welcome step. But mind you, electric vehicle needs electricity to charge it.
Right.
And if that electricity
Is from a coal plant.
from a coal plant, you are addressing the problem only half of it. So, we have to address it in totality. People have to understand it. People have to cooperate also. It's not that you can only blame the government. It is a problem caused by everybody, and it is a problem which will be solved by the participation of everybody.
But who will do it?
Making rules alone is not the answer. You know, Supreme Court passed the order about cracker burning 2 years back. I was also involved in that court. I used to go for the hearings and all. But people violated that. There were people who made videos and showed that, look, it's past 10 o'clock, I'm burning cracker, do what you can. What are you trying to prove? Supreme Court is not passing its order for its sake. It's passing order for everybody's sake. So that awareness in public has to come that it's for your own benefit. It's
Right.
like government imposing helmet and seat belt for your sake on you. It's for your benefit. Minister is not getting benefited if you wear a seat
But
belt.
the government, those who make these policies, they also are breathing the same air.
Absolutely.
So you would think that they'd be more aware and they will make sure that these coal plants implement those laws which they have passed. But what can I do as a parent? What can I do as
I feel that there has to be a citizens' movement,
To
a mass
pressurize.
movement across the country. Next election should be fought on the issue of clean air. I would like to take this opportunity to inform United Nations has declared clean air as a human right. It happened just about 6 weeks back.
So we can say my human rights
My
are being
human right, let
being violated.
this human right, clean
Okay.
air, be the election issue for 2024.
I know it sounds very radical. Those who will listen and saying, क्या बोल रहे हैं डॉक्टर साहब की human rights का हो गया. But you know, it is true. Stuff that we think is not imperative, it is. If it is survival, as you're saying, and survival, I mean, each one of us first thinks of our children, right? That's the first thing that you think is your parent and your child. Most of us would do that. And if we can't ensure survival of our parents or of our children, then this is a
Smita,
panic
we are
situation.
all talking of progress. Everybody wants to be successful,
Yeah.
entrepreneur, CEO, blah, blah, blah. I'd like to tell everybody that the first requirement for achieving any of these is a healthy body. And if your body is unhealthy, if you have host of problems from brain to toe, you cannot achieve success.
Doctor, what about COVID? Most of us who've had COVID, we are battling with this long COVID issue, breathlessness. If I could climb, 4 or 5 flights of stairs without even, forget about gasping, without even breathing heavily, I could do that. Now I can't even do 2 without gasping, without taking a pause. And this is like, it doesn't seem to go even after an hour, after a year.
Yeah. So there were 3 types of people from COVID. One who had very, very, very severe lung involvement and went to ICU and probably did not survive. There was a group which had negligible or no lung involvement who returned to normalcy after their COVID episode. And there was a group in between which had lung involvement, which was not severe enough to take them to the ICU, but was severe enough to compromise the lung function to some extent. Now, this group is the one which is actually complaining of reduced exercise ability, reduced exercise tolerance. Earlier, they could climb 5 flights of stairs. Now, they get breathless on the second floor itself. So, these people, when we are doing CT scans, are showing some amount of fibrosis in the lungs, which is the long-term effect of the lung involvement. There are some medicines being tried, but till date, there is no medicine which has been proved to be definitely effective. But what is definitely proved to be beneficial is graduated increasing exercises, breathing exercises, and the other cardio exercises, which tend to restore the elasticity of the lung and the lung function to normal levels.
But
I must issue a warning here
Okay.
that there are cases where people have gone for massive exercises suddenly and there have been fatalities also.
Right.
So when you go back to your exercise regime, it should be very, very slow, gradually increasing. Give your body time to adjust. Body has suffered damage. Don't impose massive exercise from day one. It can cause catastrophe, as it has in numerous cases across the country. So slowly increasing. Maybe first day you just exercise for 5 minutes. Let it go for 2 weeks, then make it 7 minutes, then 2 weeks, then make it 9 minutes, as your body gets used to. But with exercise, you can actually get back a lot of your original function. Second is there is a huge amount of anxiety which people are having. And I see a lot of such cases in my OPD. A lot of them are IT professionals. Right. They read a lot on the internet. And because of that, they develop more symptoms than they actually ought to be having, going by their lung standards. And all we need to do is to calm them down. Things are okay. Just have patience. Do some pranayam. Do some relaxation exercises. And surprisingly, they start feeling much better.
Doc, also the reason is, for example, a fit person got COVID, right? And so mentally to accept that you may not be able to work out as much, or you may not be able to do, and to slow down. In today's day and age, slowing down, if you tell somebody to slow down, is like telling that person die. Do you understand? Everybody is on a conveyor belt. Jaldi.
So the first thing that is needed is not to be on the conveyor belt.
Right.
Slowing down does not mean that you will not reach your destination. You'll probably reach your destination. You just need to pause, recover your health. After that, you'll be able to run fast enough to reach there.
Do you get a lot of patients who tell you in the past, like since you've been practicing medicine since the late 80s, do you get that a lot today, that the anxiety levels have increased so much that it's impacting on physiological...
Many fold increase in the anxiety levels. And I'm telling you that these post-COVID syndrome, of course it's there, long COVID, post-COVID syndrome, whatever term you want to use, it's there. But the magnitude that is being talked about has a lot to do with the anxiety that has been created around it. Oh yeah, even I'm... So a lot of people come to me, they say, I can't do this, I can't do that. And I take them with me. I say, let's climb stairs. And I start talking to them and we climb 4 flights of stairs. Then suddenly they're, oh yeah, आज आपके साथ तो चढ़ गया, मैं अकेले नहीं चढ़ पाता था. So you realize that it was actually anxiety which was preventing them. I'm not saying everything is anxiety.
Sure.
All I'm saying is that anxiety is also playing a huge role, and we need to control that.
Do you see that in children also?
Just one thing I'll add.
Sure.
What I have noticed is that, COVID and all those lockdowns and ICU stays, they actually disturbed our 24-hour schedule. And as it is, there are a lot of people who work till 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m., then sleep till 11 o'clock. There is something called body cycle. If we just restore the body cycle. So 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. was what the body is used to sleeping. If you keep the body awake during that time and you try to sleep you're going against the physiology of the body. So I tell these people, make a fixed time that, okay, by this time I'll go to sleep, I'll get up at this time, do a little bit of exercise, do a little bit of meditation, whichever form of meditation you wish to calm down your body, and then make yourself busy in some productive work and pay attention to work. When you get busy with work, suddenly you forget that you were ill. So people are not working. They're saying, no, I need to get fit because I have a lot of work to do. So that anxiety of doing a lot of work is actually preventing them from getting fit. And when they come to me, all I do is to talk to them and talk them out of it. And most of them actually come out of it.
Okay. You were talking about the body needing that sleep from 10 o'clock to 6 o'clock, you said? Or
minimum 5 to 6 hours is what an adult needs.
But in today's...
But more than duration, quality is important. If you
Yes.
are disturbed,
Yes.
what is happening? People are doing less and less of physical activity and more of mental activity. When you go to bed at 11 o'clock, if you have 100 calculations going on in your
Correct.
mind, where am I going to get that EMI? And all those things, so much of pressure, obviously you won't get sleep.
So,
And medicines are not
the
a solution because
sleep.
medicines give you artificial sleep, which just gives you some sleep hours, but not sleep relaxation. So when you get up in the morning, you feel groggy, you feel tired, and your output goes down, which further complicates the problem.
But I mean, of course, I can't say that my job is more high stress than yours. You're saving lives. But you talk to anybody, doctor, everybody says that, oh, the stress level is so much, हमको तो नींद नहीं आती. और देखो हमारा boss जो है, he sleeps only 4 hours and that's why he's the CEO. And, people are actually, with great pride, they say we need only 4 hours of sleep.
So 4 or 5 or 6 can vary from people to people. I know so many doctor friends of mine who sleep 4 hours. But then they sleep well and they get that REM sleep during which you have actually relaxed. So I would say around 6 hours is what an adult needs. It's not necessary. So 4 hours, 6 hours is just numbers put by people. If you sleep for 6 hours and do not get adequate relaxation, somebody sleeps for 4 hours and gets adequate relaxation, he's in a better position. So quality of sleep is more important than the duration of sleep.
So, migraines are a major issue, especially for women. And of course, women, whenever, they say sir dard ho raha hai, nobody used to believe it, right? And I remember people used to say yak tarfa sir dard.
Hysterical.
Right?
Hysterical was a word
often hysterical
used,
right? And they used to say, Sara time to soti hai, 8 ghante so rahi hai. But it's only, like you said, it's that deep sleep is something which was not there, right? It's only when the smartwatches came that you get to know how many hours.
I use the word sleep hours. When we sleep, say around 11 o'clock, so early morning between 4 to 5:30 or 6 is the time when we get what is called REM sleep. It's called rapid eye movement sleep, which is the deepest form of sleep, which leads to maximum relaxation.
Yeah.
So when you get that proper quality of sleep, you get up absolutely fresh. But when you are working, the whole night, and then during the daytime, when actually the body is prepared to be awake, because of the hormones are such that they are prepared to be awake, and you are trying to put them. It's like a vehicle which is in 4th gear and you are trying to put brakes. Okay. So you have an internal battle going on.
So
that's what damages the body.
So does this lack of sleep also impact on other things like
lack
your heart
of sleep
or brain?
Lack of sleep, first thing, leads to very high anxiety levels. You have all the time, you are anxious, your attention span goes down, that leads to a decrease in work output, and you get into a trap, a vicious cycle where one thing leads to the other. And all you need to do is to just bring yourself out, give your body that much needed good quality sleep, relaxation, let the stress go out, and things start improving.
So now, nowadays, I mean, not nowadays, probably for a couple of years. I mean, earlier it was like yoga kar lo, meditation kar lo, switch off kar lo. Then there are these apps which come in, which help you, like, water flowing app, or you don't subscribe to those? I can see you nodding your head.
I'm a huge believer in natural things.
Okay.
If I look at ancient India and I look at Western countries of the last 30, 40 years. In ancient India, there was peace, there was tranquility, there was health. And if you look at the Western countries last 30, 40 years, depression, stress, anxiety, heart disease, hypertension, diabetes, all these problems are there. And I feel that all these problems are man-made because of their running away from natural things and relying more and more and more on artificial things. And these apps are the latest addition to that huge area of artificial things. Instead of water flowing app, if you just go and sit near a fountain or just relax yourself. You
Calmness.
don't need an app. The biggest thing is you need to understand that everything is good, and we need to control our ambitions also. It's good to be ambitious, but it's not good to be over ambitious to the level that it starts hurting you, thereby preventing you from achieving that you've been working hard to achieve. It becomes counterproductive.
I'm going to hand you over to our health reporter, I'm sure she has a lot of anxiety because she got stuck in traffic,
Yeah.
right? So, Shalini, we've discussed already about various lung-related issues and what the governments should do, what parents should do, but nothing much that we can do to save ourselves unless we create awareness and become like a pressure group. I think that's what Dr. Saw was saying, that we need to make our policy makers aware that, this is something which we are going to have an epidemic of cancer in a few years' time if we don't resolve this and we make sure that the laws which currently exist, they are implemented. That implementation pe hum chook jate hain. So this is what we discussed so far, and of course anxiety, sleep, long COVID, these are points. But if you have anything else that you would like to ask.
Yeah, sir, I just wanted to know the implication, especially if we talk about the COVID and if we do link between the children's health and COVID, because their lungs are already very much compromised and pollution is also there. How it is affecting, because a lot of cases are coming.
So, COVID impacted lungs will be more vulnerable to the impacts of air pollution because it's already a diseased lung. So, diseased lung subjected to same toxin will fare much worse than a normal healthy lung subjected to same toxin. So, whether it is children or adults, if they have COVID impacted lungs where some fibrosis or other problems have taken place, these people definitely will be more prone to the ill effects of air pollution than other people.
Sir, we have one more issue with the pregnant women also.
Nee, but before that, like what you were saying, when, basically COVID ho gaya, pata bhi nahi laga, COVID ho gaya, it's gone. Unless that secondary infection kind of a thing doesn't start, you don't go to a doctor. Most people don't want to go to doctors, firstly. And then you go to a doctor. How does one know that, oh, okay, I need to go to a doctor for preventing further issues from happening?
So, I think the first indication that there is something wrong with the lung comes from your feeling that your exercise ability is going down. So if you used to climb to say third floor without a difficulty, now if you start getting breathless, that's the first indication which will come to you that something is going wrong, or cough may be there. So the symptoms include decreasing exercise ability, cough, chest pain, feeling of congestion in the chest, and you become very prone to secondary infections and start getting them with higher frequency than you used to get in the past. So these are 4-5 indicators that
as a
something is
parent,
going
I
wrong.
think if you notice that your kid is not going out to play,
Yes.
sitting with a device more, mostly people think, "Arey, ye to they want to play with a device," but it could also be that he or she doesn't like playing outside because they don't have the
They
strength.
get breathless. Yes,
get
yes,
breathless.
yes. So
But
you
they are
should
not able
you
to.
should watch them
Huh.
that if they avoid running, they don't want to do those exercises or play those things where they have to make physical activity, and they are tending to sit more and more, you should immediately get him checked.
So can
Is there
schools
something
do
wrong?
screening or something like that? That's whereby you get to
So
know.
the numbers may be so small that actually if you do a mass level screening, it may not be helpful. But if you select out those who have some suggestive symptoms and do screening in that focused population, I think that will be more cost effective.
And maybe in the rural areas, the primary healthcare centers can take over this project of screening people, and then we'll at least have some kind of data so that governments can act. Unless they have that data and they know that it's so enormous, the problem is so enormous, they may not do it.
Yes, this should be done, especially,
So,
ma'am, if I
there
talk
is-
about, the pregnancy also. During pregnancy also, the air pollution has a lot of implications.
We-
on
Yes, we
pregnancy.
discussed this.
discussed it in
How it
detail.
affects fetus.
Yes, we
Yeah.
discussed it in detail that pregnancy is actually one of the most. So there are three vulnerable groups: the pregnant women, the growing children, and the elderly people. Pregnant women because the fetus gets affected, growing children because their tissues are growing from brain to toe. Every tissue is growing, and when the growing tissue is attacked by these toxins, the growth potential of all organs is impacted, and the various organs may not grow to their optimum potential. 1 and 2 may develop n number of diseases. The elderly have a reduced immunity because of their advanced age, their organs are old, they may be having many other comorbid conditions, and if they are subjected to pollution, they have much higher morbidity, mortality than so these are the three vulnerable segments of society.
Sir, as well as children, like if I talk about autistic children, they can't express much. They are also suffering, one of the studies says.
So they will be suffering as much as the other children will be suffering. Only thing is they can't express as the other children come. So their suffering level will not be higher, but they may not be able to express, and therefore they may get more impact because they are not able to express the problem.
And also people with existing comorbidities like your diabetes, hypertension, unka aur bhi zyada ho jata hai
Altogether.
because of pollution is what we discussed.
Yeah.
So,
So,
is,
obesity
Yeah.
and diabetes, these are two latest additions to the list of problems caused by air pollution. And unfortunately, both are impacting children. So the increasing incidence of obesity in children and increasing incidence of diabetes being discovered in children is somewhere or the other linked to their exposure to air pollution.
Dr. Saab, I think what my suggestion, even though you wouldn't take it maybe, but what you should take it back to your medical fraternity is that you should do this free for cost screening in the parliament and in every state assemblies so that they get to know that they are victims. Unless they don't know that wo marne wale hain, tab tak kuch nahi karenge.
So first thing that I've requested a lot of doctors through their associations is to put a kind of a placard, big placard outside their clinics. In India, breathing kills. In India, breathing
Kills.
Kills.
Not
Kills.
smoking, but breathing.
breathing
kills.
kills. If you just put this placard outside, it will start a conversation. Immediately, Doctor Saab, ये क्या लिखा हुआ है आपने? We are alive because we are breathing. What do you mean breathing kills? So it will start a conversation, and somewhere when you tell them more, give them more information, it will hit them.
Thank you so much for coming. It's I know it's going to shock many people, but that shock treatment is necessary, I feel. Unless we are shocked into doing something, we just don't. There is so much of, everybody is a laggard when it comes to taking proactive measures. And unless they know that their lives are at stake and their children's lives are at stake, nobody will do anything.
So my last sentence will be to convey a message that air pollution is not an environmental or a chemical issue. Air pollution is a very serious health issue which is going to impact us. More importantly, it's going to damage our next generation. It's a health emergency that India is faced with, and unless all the people start working together along with the government to rectify this problem will persist.
Thank you very much for speaking
Thank
with us,
you.
Dr. Saab.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for listening in to ANI Podcast with Smita Prakash. Like or subscribe in any platform that you have seen or listened to it. Namaste, Jai Hind.